kids are watching, the oregano. Damn, free Kehlani, yo. Y'all see what's going on with her? Who in the chat thinks Kehlani's done? Or if you think this is just her humiliation ritual so that she could blow up? Because I think she's about to be, you know, I think this is gonna go away in a few months. But I don't think she's done. Like, I don't know. I'm like half and half about it. Like, I feel like they're just trying to make her loyal to them. Because, you know, she's always been so, like, flimsy, like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But what happened was she didn't put her child's father on the birth certificate. He said like she was abusive and narcissistic. Her wife, who she's now annulled the marriage, said that she was possessed and playing a role the whole time that they were in a relationship. Very short-lived. They were married for like 4 months. Everybody's saying that she's an abuser, she's abusive. One girl, the girl was on hospice and she told the girl to give her ashes so that she could go spread them and use them or whatever, but then the girl didn't die, so she like cut her off. Like, she ghosted her when she found out like she wasn't dying anymore. So it was like she only wanted to be her friend because she was sick and she wanted her ashes, which is kind of sus. But like, but her SZA are all in the same Santeria thing. They go to that same man. I told y'all, whenever they come with the all white, they just did the whole oh my gosh, where do y'all live? Why is nobody know? I'm the news source, huh? I'm the one that brings y'all the news. I my bad. That was stupid. I don't know why. I'm like, why don't y'all know this? My bad. Okay, so all of this spiraled from Chris Brown. Chris Brown posted a picture of him and Kehlani, like, twin. And, you know, she's, like, queen of taking the side of the victims and all that stuff like that. So it was just out of left field that she would be with an abuser. And also, he was the first person on Twitter running his mouth when she tried to herself with the Kyrie and Party Next Door stuff. So, sis, that's not your man's. But they've been friends. Like, this is, if like you follow them, like, you know, like, this is old news. But I guess the internet just found out. Everybody started like spazzing. But I told y'all, as soon as she signed with Roc Nation, this was all gonna happen. Same thing that happened with Meg. Everything was fine. She signed with Roc Nation. They took her mom, allegedly. Let me, you know, but they took advantage of her mom being gone and slid in there trying to get her to be loyal to them. The whole thing with Tory, they orchestrated all of that. Her being over there while he was doing his radio thing, that was blowing up. They needed to take him down. It was that was a... Roc Nation is shiesty, okay? Listen, it's the same recipe. People are like, oh, there's so many artists signed to them. They're not going to do it to every artist. Like, does that make sense? You don't get away with things by doing the same thing to everybody. You got to do little things that nobody's going to notice. It has to be psychosis thing. So when you say it, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're crazy. You just got to put the patterns together. Like, it's really not that hard. So when you do see the patterns, come on, she went from being all peaceful and she was saving the earth. She had woke on her hand. She covered the woke up. She did that a while back. But like, you know, she's always a part of something and then erasing that part and saying like, I moved on to this, I'm doing that. Like, she's kind of whoever she's with at the moment, or like whatever phase of her life, that's what she's all into. So it's like starting to spill out all over the internet right now. So we can start with this girl, Kelly in the Know. She made like a whole TikTok series, so I'm gonna let her do this.
So let me get this straight. Kehlani has been lying about her ex and her daughter's father's sexuality for years, was abusive towards him, and the only reason we're finding out about it is because she was posted up with Chris Brown. So Chris Brown posted this picture with Kehlani today, captioned it twin with a heart emoji. Because Kehlani has built a platform on activism over the last couple years, it did not sit well with a lot of people. At Mad Black Vegan posted on Twitter today and said YG is her ex, her baby daddy is a gay man from Twitter, and she was hiding her pregnancy from Victoria Monet to keep her. Not sure why you think that lady is normal, and she's been abnormal for over a decade. So this is where Kehlani's ex and her daughter's father, Javaughn, comes in. He went on to say, I got 2 decades of gay allegations under my belt already, but I can't let y'all keep getting away with this. He clarified, I don't identify as bi either. Just crazy, and I think a lot of people think Javaughn is bi because Kehlani said he was bi. When they welcomed their daughter, you could find a dozen interviews of Kehlani talking about this, but she said it right here. I was really lucky to find a partner who was a bisexual male, because at the time Kehlani identified as bisexual as well. Some people replied and took his this and being really offended people were calling him gay, so he clarified and said, no, people implying I'm a gay sperm donor when I'm a whole father is lame as hell, and I'm not gonna sit here and go along with it. Here's where he starts words hinting at Kehlani. MF sat there and lied on my sexuality to protect whatever lesbian identity was working for them at the time. And I caught all the flack for it and constantly get told to shut the fuck up before I ruin MF's career. That's what gets me tight, bro. Like I said, I've been called gay 5 ever. It's not that. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes people will probably never know, but I do have proof she tried to pay for Santeria work on me to silence me, but dude refused. So people should really question what I actually see and know and stop provoking me.
Yeah, and he said that, like, she tried to get him killed or whatever, like...
That's all I'm gonna say for now. The rest will come out on its own. Someone replied and said, I think it's weird to air out the mother of your child like this, but that's just me. Javaughn
he said, I think it's weird to try to get me killed.
Yeah.
So this page posted, Kehlani, these abuse allegations are not going away. If anything, it's getting worse. I'm actually so devastated by this. Women can be abusers too. A lot of you, I think that because she's famous and is on her advocate and empowering type shit, that it's not possible. It haunts me that someone who has influenced me for damn near a decade could be so dangerous. It was a lot of stuff, y'all. Like, it was just back to back people coming out saying that she's abusive. It's a lot.
I haven't even gotten out of bed yet, but look at this update just dropped on TMZ an hour ago. Javaughn, Kehlani's ex and the father of her daughter Adea, has put in court documents requesting full custody because he thinks Kehlani has been involved in a sex cult for years. According to court documents obtained by TMZ, Javaughn says he believes Kehlani's been mixed up with a cult for the past few years, and it's influencing how she's raising their daughter. They don't say who it is, but they say the cult leader has a bunch of sexual assault accusations, and he's afraid for his daughter. He says that Kehlani is so involved with this cult, and the cult leaders are so maybe in control of her, that it's a threat to their daughter.
But allegedly she left the cult now, so...
Now everyone's friends are getting involved. This is Kehlani's friend, Jean Doe. She's a singer, but she was basically confirming that her and Kehlani were in a religious group that was affiliated with Santeria, but made clear it's not a cult, though the group they were in had an abusive leader, and so Kehlani and she left. Now, people found this post of hers from a few days ago where she seems to be talking about the religious group and said that house is filled with liars, R-worders, and scammers who prey on innocent people searching for their own truth. So, kind of talking about that as people were like, wait, was it a cult? Like, what are we talking about here? Just was basically saying she wasn't backtracking, but they haven't been a part of that group for over a year now, and that dude is a weirdo, and that's why they all got away and out of that group. She did start saying that maybe it's racist to be calling this particular religious group a cult, but said it wasn't a sex cult at all.
Hold on. I'm about to show you right now. Can y'all see this picture? Kehlani and her daughter right there in the front, and then SZA in the back with the white on. I guess that the man standing next to SZA is the cult leader. It's a very interesting thing they got going on. Like, Santeria it is not a cult, but like everything has good and bad, you know, like it's not everybody's bad, not everybody's good. It's very, you know.
Did everyone know?
Yes, we know Kehlani
Kehlani has finally put out a statement responding to the claims that came out yesterday, and Javaughn also put out a statement responding to the TMZ article, so I'm going to go through both of those right now. She says, what has been published in the media over the past 24 hours is incredibly hurtful, inaccurate, inappropriate, and simply untrue. I wanted to take the time to ensure that I responded to these accusations from a calm and considered space rather than a reactive one. I strongly deny any claims that I have put my child in harm's way or left my child alone with anyone deemed dangerous or unsafe. I also do not align with any of the allegations made against my former religious community that have been stated in the media. That one is interesting because her friend did admit that the leader of the group they were a part of had SA allegations. I have always taken great care to ensure that my child remains protected and safe at all times. My child and my commitment to motherhood have always been my sole driving force in this life, and I will always
This is a
remain
PR
so.
statement,
This is who
bro.
I am and what I have always been focused on. This is a legal, private, familial matter that will be handled accordingly, and I will now be taking space for my own personal well-being and most importantly for the well-being of my child. Thank you for your support and for respecting our privacy. I will not be commenting further and will let the legal due process take place. And I'm going to do the same thing with Javaughn. I never said that I think Santeria is a sex cult, nor did I say that my daughter is in a sex cult. That's factually inaccurate, and I think it's disgusting that TMZ would exploit a child's image like that. Further, I have not been made aware of any court-ordered mediation as of this writing per the account of TMZ.
This is another PR statement. They wrote that for both of them and said, here, post this right now.
Personally, I would love for TMZ to justify to me, the father, how they came up with this narrative. narrative. The TMZ article sensationalized aspects of what was said while simultaneously breaching my confidentiality. He goes on to say, I do not need to paint an unfair image of my co-parent for my justifiable feelings to be respected by the court of law. I am hoping to clear the discrepancies made by TMZ. I hope to see a formal retraction and apology. Sincerely, Javaughn Young-White. So it does sound like Javaughn intends to file an amendment and kind of better express what his concerns are. This first page is basically him just saying he is giving this declaration instead of giving testimony, and that he feels everyone has a bigger say-so in decision-making around his daughter's life than he does. Kehlani gave birth to Adea in a home birth, and he is saying that already at that time Kehlani was in a cult and that the home birth was orchestrated by the cult. Now, since it was a home birth, you're not at a hospital to automatically get a birth certificate. You have a certain amount of time to register your child for a birth certificate. Javaughn is alleging that when Kehlani did finally register Adea for a birth certificate, she did not put Javaughn as the father on Adea's birth certificate. And for the past 5 years, Adea is 5 years old, he has been requesting a copy of her birth certificate and asking to be added to it, and none of that has happened. He says he's not even sure if Adea has a social security number because he's been asking for it and hasn't received. Now, after this is when he starts getting into allegations of the cult members and the cult leaders with their daughter.
And like, this is the court documents. This isn't TMZ. Like, this is his declaration.
The cult is in control of her actions and behaviors around raising Adea. He goes on to say that the cult leader's name is Nito, and that Nito had a vision that Javaughn was a danger to their daughter, and basically kind of had Kehlani no longer allow Javaughn to see their daughter because of his vision.
And that's what they do. They isolate you. They tell you that people are a danger to you, the people who love you, the people who care about, and then you start following that and you be like, oh, I gotta cut everybody. Just listen.
Nito does have accusations of SA against women and young girls.
How are you a predator telling someone, oh, you have to get away from this person?
He does say that when Kehlani toured in the past, he would have custody of Adea, but ever since Nito had this vision that he was going to harm his daughter, Adea is just on tour with Kehlani, being taken care of by the cult members, including Nito, while she's on tour and when she's busy. He goes on to say that Nito has been allowed to perform religious ceremonies on their daughter when no one else is present, and Javaughn did not find out about that until Adea's birthday last year.
Excuse me?
March of 2023, and when he found out, he became like so upset he had to become physically restrained by members of the cult. He also says that there is a member of the group that Kehlani refers to as the Messiah, who is an adult woman, when under the influence of psychedelic drugs, takes baths with the child. He says that when Kehlani is on tour, Adea sleeps with, is bathed by, and is just in general taken care of and left alone with members of this cult. Sounds like he may still be not allowed to spend as much time with Adea ever since that vision. He goes on to say he is to understand that these cult members are on drugs, and he would prefer that she be in his custody and not allowed to be taken care of by these people.
And she used to always be with her dad before this stuff. Like, that's crazy from like what we see on social media,
and
you know?
He is also requesting full custody due to Kehlani's busy schedule, her relationship with the cult that she is involved in, and the fact that she has told him that she is bipolar. He also would like Kehlani to
Everybody has this same story of her being bipolar and like playing different roles. Like, that's crazy.
The environment that she has created for herself is not the type of environment that a child should be living in, and therefore I bring myself to the mercy and wisdom of the court to save my daughter before it is too late. For the aforementioned reasons, I pray that the court grants my request for order. Javaughn did just make another statement. He is basically taking back any claims in his original filing made against Neto, who was, I think, Kehlani's godfather in the group she was a part of.
Why are we taking those back?
And who was mentioned a couple of different times in the filing. He says he pretty much got these allegations from people he trusted, but now they're kind of backtracking on what they had told him, and he does stand by some other things he had said, but let's go through everything. On August 6th, the public became aware of court documents that were submitted without my approval by my former representation. These documents contain general recollections from my initial consultation with my aforementioned rep. They were filed with choice language I didn't okay. I regret they were included. Before filing, the information regarding priest Neto and his church were circulated to me by parties of priority. I am now aware that these parties were attempting to use allegations and vocabulary to escalate their own disputes within the church. As of today, these parties no longer align with their allegations. Understandably, I was not aware of that at the time. When I was presented with the allegations against Neto and his church, my daughter was no longer affiliated. However, I was still deeply distressed about the direct care of my child. From my perspective, I was being told the consequences of alarming decision-making that could have ended quite differently. Before my daughter joined the church, I advocated for my child's agency, as I would any sudden lifestyle shift or new parental custodians. I could not stop anything due to the intentional, ongoing state of my parental custody and documentation. I was disregarded. So he is clearly referencing here that
he didn't write any of that. You see that says Javaughn Young White and counsel. Counsel wrote that, sweetie. That he didn't say any of this.
The parties' accounts and evidence of it were thus provided to my previous counsel during consultation, but never approved for submission. To be clear, the explicit wording of this account did not have my approval either. There are other concerns that encourage me to prioritize issues of custody and documentation. Again, birth certificate, getting legally considered a parent. As a father, I could never have anticipated that such serious allegations would be so careless. I still believe my alarm was proportionate to the information I received from the trusted parties. However, I deeply regret and apologize for any role I played in perpetuating these claims. I hope Priest Neto, his family, and affected members of the church receive just restoration. I'm looking forward to continuing the advocacy of my child's well-being. Sincerely, Javaughn Young White and counsel. So here he clearly is referencing rumors that have been going around that he was basically being given false information. And he kind of says here that based on what he was hearing, he was incredibly concerned, I think, as any parent would be if those things were told to you. And considering you are not a legal parent, you don't really have any rights in the situation, like I also would have freaked out. And he says he basically recounted exactly what was told to him.
I need her to stop saying he, because he didn't say any of this. Like, I'm not believing that. Is he okay? Are we sure he's not tied up in a closet somewhere at this point? Because,
for
come
obvious
on.
reasons, he references that he is trying to solve issues.
He's being
custody and
reprogrammed.
documentation, getting on a day of birth certificate, being considered an actual parent legally, and having like a clear custody agreement. I don't know who was telling him these things, but there are posts from members of this church who have made a lot of different claims in the last few days, and they seem to be implying that whoever was making claims about them might be either well-known within the church or potentially well-known publicly, but we really have no idea who was making those. In the last 24 hours, Kehlani's former godmother in the religious group she was a part of has been speaking out without saying Kehlani by name, but is throwing out some accusations against a famous person who left the group about a year ago. And if that sounds familiar, you know why. Next up is from Kay on the upper left. That's their username on TikTok. Kay makes allegations against Kehlani of mental abuse, encouraging gang stalking, and becoming her power of attorney while she was on end-of-life care. Now, this is Naomi. She goes by Siniza on Instagram. She was Kehlani's godmother in the religious group they were a part of, and she is Neto's wife. Just for some proof, here's Kehlani and Adea, Naomi, and Neto. And also in an old post from Kehlani, she tags Neto and Siniza. And after Javaughn made this post on Instagram last night, Naomi came out in her stories and talked about what has been going on. In this post, Naomi thanks Javaughn for clearing up the allegations that were made against Neto in his declaration. Goes on to say that this has been going on with them for 8 months. They are going to be handling the rest through legal channels themselves. And she says she hopes that Javaughn can continue to advocate for his daughter. And the last line is, shame on people who use their power, fame, and platforms to cause harm too. Now, she never says Kehlani directly, but this all does seem to imply it is about Kehlani. It says almost a year ago, they asked a former member of their spiritual house to take space and ultimately seek spiritual growth elsewhere. Now, Kehlani's friend on Twitter did mention that it was about a year ago that Kehlani and her left this spiritual group. She says, after 4 years of supporting this person through different trials and tribulations, many relationships, very difficult and traumatic situations, we decided we could no longer want to continue to engage with this person as the harm was starting to bleed into the members of our community, and we ultimately had a responsibility to the space as a whole. Right up here, she says, when this person left, they and their friends proceeded to invent lies and claim that Neto was an R-worder, that we were financially abusing, scamming, and we are a demonic cult against many other lies. It has been claimed by others online in the last week or so that it was actually Kehlani who was spreading rumors that this group was a cult, and all of the different allegations we heard against Neto. This does imply that. They asserted claims that someone had been SA'd, yet a victim never came forward, and people were threatened that if they asked around for the victim, the person would unalive themselves. Now, again, if you remember Dondo's tweets when she talked about her and Kehlani leaving the group a year ago, she did say that the leader of that group, who is Neto, was had SA allegations. Now, down below, she does mention Javaughn by name and says when he heard these rumors, he of course acted in defense and safety of his daughter, as anyone would. Up here, she basically says they have spent months trying to clear their name, and that the person who is spreading these rumors has no other reasons other than being pathological, and that they're glad Javaughn was able to clear up the fact that he did not make these rumors up, because the person had to come forward and say it wasn't true, that the space has never been unsafe, and that Neto is not a predator. In the bottom paragraph, she talks about the work they do in their group, and she says, a lot of folks need to hold a mirror and ask yourselves whether you've been persuaded by money, resources, and a perfect victim narrative to allow you to see yet another man of color as a perpetrator of violence, rather than a victim of lies and deceit at the hands of a racially ambiguous white person with resources and fame. She says, we are done talking about this. Unless you have a victim who is stepping forward that we must center or needed community resolution or restorative conversations, I will not be giving this any more public energy, as we are now seeking the proper legal channels of accountability. Bless up. Now for Kay's story. You can go to Kay's page to see the entire post, but the post has claims of really a damaging relationship to Kay's mental health.
This is what I was talking about, the ashes.
Hi, I'm Kay. Today I shared my story about this person because I had known them from 2022 until the end of last year. When they came into my life, I was on hospice and very sick. I ended up getting better and being one of the very few people that recovered at mitochondrial disease. And things kind of fell apart with us, and they had their friends come after me. I really wouldn't have said anything if they didn't have their friends come after me and come after my friends and call them late into the night. I shared my story today, and within 5 minutes, I started getting phone calls. My partner started getting phone calls, and Kehlani herself called my friend at work.
Kay gives a brief overview in that video, and in her post explains that when she met Kehlani, she was on hospice, which is typically palliative end-of-life care, because she was born with a mitochondrial disease. Explains that Kehlani requested some of her ashes, and
like, why do you want my ashes, bro? No, thank you.
She was going to be buried in if she wasn't going to be cremated, it sounds like. But luckily, Kay went into remission, and sounds like one of the few people who was able to do that with the disease she was born with, but does say that after she went into remission, that is when Kehlani's interest kind of went away. But before that, they were in contact just about every day for months. Here are texts Kay says are between her and Kehlani, and another set with the offer to buy the clothes that Kay would be buried in. She does not go into more detail about this, but does say that Kehlani became her power of attorney.
That threw me. Like, what do you mean power of attorney? What are you talking about? Why did you even agree to that? People get so blinded by the celebrity that you don't, because you do not know this person. Now you're just now getting to know them as a person versus like this person you grew up listening to and watching. Like, what do you mean you gave her power of attorney? That doesn't even make sense. Like, that's not compute. No, I'm so sorry. Like, you didn't have anybody else. And you have a partner? Is that all you have? Like, that's crazy. And you know she doing witchcraft. Like, it's open. Like, girl, we know what you're doing. So, like, come on.
And Kay seemed to think it was odd, too, and was asking why she wanted to be so involved. And Kehlani just kept saying, because Kay's a wonderful person, but it never felt right. And while Kay was on her deathbed, Kehlani would share inappropriate messages about hookups they had, describing people's body parts in like intimate detail, randomly sending pictures and videos of situationships they were with, then would get mad at Kay for being in their business, but was asking to be set up with people. Example A. Here, Kay pretty much says she reached out to a mutual friend, it sounds like, and basically found out that the stories Kehlani was telling were not adding up. The mutual friend Kay talked to told Kehlani, and it sounds like Kehlani then had other friends messaging Kay and her friends. Now, obviously, for someone who is on hospice, added stress is not good, and Kay says things went really left. She lost 15 pounds, and even her doctor was really concerned that she wasn't safe mentally. She goes on to reference kind of what Javaughn had been talking about in his initial tweets, and just says, you know, lots of love bombing, manipulation, and gaslighting, and it's just abuse that doesn't get talked about enough. But let's get into what Kehlani had to say. I've tried to handle this privately on numerous occasions through various channels now, and have been accused of harassment. I know once I speak on it, it brings a lot of attention to this person, and I never wanted them to be bullied or have mass amounts of people in their direction. Unfortunately, this keeps growing and needs to be addressed. While I have already had...
I'm sorry. I don't care how big of a star I am or how big of anything. If I was in that world, you just called me an abuser, said that I was going to take your, all of this stuff. If that was not true, there's no way I'm coming on here talking about I don't want this person to be bullied. Be bullied. Go do something with yourself. Go jump off something. I don't care after you just lied on me. But clearly, listen, I'm not, all right.
I have my head down. I am being kicked by an old friend. I met Kayla Cotton in a virtual meet and greet in which she was on hospice and said it was her dying wish to meet me. Then again on TikTok. I hit her up to have her come through the tour in which she got to come, meet everyone backstage, and see the show. After meeting her, I extended the offer to stay in contact because I thought she was kind and inspiring. We stayed in contact nearly every day. That's the same thing Kay said as well. I took her to a college basketball game, watched the games online together via phone as I was on tour, and she came to various shows and festivals of mine. We made sure my team took care of her every single time. When basketball season ended and I got busier starting to make the album, Kayla began updating Tashi and I about her declining health daily. Every day was an update about how she wouldn't wake up in the morning. She began burial plans, funeral plans, and what to do with her ashes. I never begged for her ashes. She said she couldn't trust her family to handle her the right way, and we had an extremely light exchange about spreading them in a place she always thought was pretty, Hawaii. We helped her ask her then not girlfriend to be her girlfriend, and we helped her decide on the promise ring, and Kay wanted to propose to her to put her on the will to make her decisions. I have never been anyone's power of attorney in my entire lifetime. I don't even know what that entails. I absolutely bought her casket outfit as a final gift because why wouldn't I? This is someone we've grown close to every single day, talk to every single day.
I'm like, power of attorney is serious. Like, that's a lot.
When we went into remission, we celebrated on the phone. As I began to get really into the album, Kayla sent me 2 long texts in a row, reiterating I wasn't being responsive or attentive enough anymore. When I didn't respond to the last one, she decided to call my then most recent ex-girlfriend, who was healing from our breakup, to vindictively tell her what I have been doing single. I addressed her very seriously and calmly. Kayla had become friends with 4 of my friends as I had become friends with 2 of hers. My friends addressing the harm she caused privately with her is not harassment or gang stalking. It's addressing. And finally to address, I have sent sexualized photos is completely false. Talking about my sex life with a friend who is also sharing details about her sex life because we're 2 grown women is completely normal. Having those stories used against you to a healing ex when someone is feeling vindictive is not. I have screenshots to prove and back all of this up, and I've attempted to go through the proper channels initially so it didn't have to go this far. If Kayla is willing to have this mediated privately and be honest about the situation, I'm willing to not post screenshots, as that, to me, is an invasion of privacy. I'm focused on my child and the matters surrounding her. This doesn't need to be drawn out any longer and needs to be handled how it should have been, between friends. Thank you. She also put out this statement and said, my silence is focus. I'm focused on my daughter. I'm tired of my silence being framed as anything but. My daughter and the work I have to continue her life remains as wonderful it is my focus. I have no ill wishes, even for those who have ill wishes towards me. I'm a mother first and foremost, and a person who believes in God. This has all taught me a lesson about discernment, privacy, and focus. Back to what's important. I hope to see you on tour. Now, Javaughn, the father of Kehlani's daughter, also said this: anyone can get shut up, but no one can silence me personally. Potentially responding to Kehlani saying I've never been a power of attorney. I don't know how to be a power of attorney. Javaughn also posted this, but read into it what you know. Kehlani has replied to Kay's allegations.
Wait.
Javaughn is back on Instagram with new allegations against Kehlani and is taking aim at her victim mentality. These are actively being posted, so let's get into what's been posted so far. In text messages with Kehlani around June 13th, you can see Kehlani texting here, Javaughn, call me now, like ASAP, emergency, I'm trying to call and it's going to voicemail. Down below, Javaughn says, I begged you to leave me alone. I begged you that I did not want to speak. I ran from your room into the back house. You followed me and barged through the door. I asked you repeatedly that I did not want to talk to you. You said, quote, you have to speak to your co-parent, end quote. I ran into the bathroom. I said, no, I don't. Please stop. I said, please leave me alone, because I knew what you were about to do. I said, I am packing. You kept coming. You wanted us homeless in the morning. Now, on these texts, he also wrote, Kehlani busted through her own door and is framing her abuse as mine. I have more. This is why I keep a paper trail. Sad that she's resorting to lying. Javaughn and his girlfriend were living with her rent-free freeloaders, and Javaughn did clarify this a few days ago, and he said, she asked me to come live with her in her back house before we left for tour. Prior, I lived in East LA for 3 years in my own crib. So in the text, it seems to be be during the time that he was living in Kehlani's back house, because she asked him to. Now, in another text from July 7th, Javaughn wrote to Kehlani, "I've decided I'm never speaking to you privately ever again. I'm asking to set up communication with Adea completely separate from any direct communication with you. That's a liability to my safety because of your lying ability. We know what you lied about, down to your little burner accounts, don't care to rehash. That's a you thing, and everything you claim I lie about, I have 100% physical proof of. There's no reason to speak. With my fatherly rights, I'll be having someone contact her school directly for all updates about her. I'm asking to go no contact with you specifically because I've recognized a real pattern of different forms of abuse since I was 20 years old, freshly homeless, fleeing another dangerous situation to your couch at Sycamore Avenue. You confidently and conveniently always leave that part out." Up top, he writes, "I cut off all contact with her last month because of her abuse and how she alleges abuse when she is scared. Kiara, Kehlani's ex-girlfriend, the contact is Kiki. Kiki says, I just talked to blank. I pray that this girl gets what she deserves. She's hurt way too many good people and she needs to be held accountable for everything, whatever we have to do." Now, Javaughn adds context. The blurred out name is a person that gave her the closure she needed. In his text, he says, "Yeah, I'm sorry too. I know it's rough to hear it all at the same time as it's enlightening. She's trying to bullshit her way through all of this, but I genuinely don't think it'll work. She's left a bad mark on too many people. Not saying they will, but stand your ground if her or any of those people around her try to come and manipulate you. Stay calm, because they like to provoke people." He writes on it, "Meanwhile, I've spoken to Kiara. I know the truth of what they did to that girl. It's sad. I don't care if they silenced her. They won't do the same to me. When she cheated on her last girlfriend, Kiara, she, being Kehlani, alleged the person she was cheating with R-worded her. Kiara later found out that wasn't true. She alleges R and SA when she has nothing else to cling to." In another slide he posted, "Everything else I'll address later, but I want all false accusations of abuse to rest. That is not normal to scream abuse when you don't know what to do." He also shared this message, which appeared to be from a friend, and said, "I am comfortable with you bringing up how she became friends with that internet personality and told her you physically abused," and I quote, the girl said, "Watch out for him. He's a very dangerous individual," end quote, only to turn around and admit she lied because she realized how damaging it was. Told that girl to tell every person that it was a lie, but then they backtracked saying you emotionally, verbally abused her, not physical. They go on to say, "And because I told them I was not acquainted with you in any form other than through Twitter at the time and how we grew up in close neighborhoods. Then because I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with what was going on in between you guys, how she and this internet personality then turned around to attempt to dox me and leave me subject to harassment from her fans." He texted Kehlani today at 5:31, so this is fresh. He said, "I'm giving you the chance to retract your statement before I post everything." Seems like she finally responded and said, "I'm calling you. I was in rehearsal. I can retract. I've been in 6-hour rehearsal." He wrote down below, "She lied for public favor, and all y'all who claim to be her friend need to get off trying to paint me any type of way for her and go tell her to quit lying, man. It's not good for the spirit. It's real layers to the audacity of her lies here." Okay, well, I found out what Javaughn wanted Kehlani to retract. Kehlani filed for and was granted a temporary restraining order for her and Adea against Javaughn on Friday. In the restraining order, Kehlani alleges previous abuse by Javaughn and will be limiting his contact with Adea, and there will be a hearing on this at 8:30 a.m. on September 3rd. Kehlani was requesting protection from Javaughn for herself and Adea. Now, the judge did approve it. It is a TRO, so it's just a temporary restraining order. In this order, Javaughn is not allowed to contact Kehlani or Adea, so I'm really hoping he didn't get himself in trouble by posting text messages he had with Kehlani today. He also must stay at least 100 yards away from Kehlani's home, job, workplace, vehicle, and Adea and her school. Order to move out not requested, and there was another order that was denied until hearing, but it was blocked out by the judge. No travel with Adea without Kehlani's permission if going out of the county of Los Angeles or the state of California. They have also stopped his access to the child's school, health, and other records. So he is blocked from medical, dental, mental health providers, school and daycare, and extracurricular information. It is reiterated here that Kehlani has sole custody of Adea, so legal and physical custody. Javaughn can have no visitation with Adea until further order of the court, not even monitored visitation. There's also an additional order to prevent child abduction because Javaughn has, and it's indicated here, has a history of abusing person 1, which is Kehlani, and not cooperating with person 1, Kehlani, in parenting. And then down below, must not move with Adea outside the county, California, or the United States. I have evidence for everything. I have always forgiven and come back around because otherwise my daughter is weaponized against me. She takes care of all her friends who live off her. I was only ever around for my daughter. The moment I try to leave for good, I was retaliated against with violence and anti-blackness. I ran from this lady multiple times in my life for good reason. He posted this text from a friend that read, I don't know if you got my number saved still, but I'm proud of you, bro. I truly do pray everything happens as it should. I'm happy the tape has been removed. Silence is no longer an option. Proud of you for real. For years it felt like things I would say went in one ear and out the other about my situation, and you exposing your truth has brought so much light towards my truth. I'm just grateful, to say the least. People now see I never lied. Thank you for your strength in standing up.
I'm like so into this right now because I posted on my Instagram and said that there was a shift in the energy and that something was going to happen. That was just me and my pattern recognition, like just me noticing things and seeing the like how things play out. And everybody was like, you know, telling me I'm reading too much into it and da da da, and that she's just, when I have those feelings, it's just like, damn, I didn't want this to play out like this. This is crazy. This is terrible. Everything has just been like a freaking domino effect. What's going on in that industry?
Girlfriend has also spoken out about this today on Twitter and has said, I've been silent because at the end of the day, I'll just be painted as the girlfriend of the baby dad, but I literally cannot be silent anymore. I'm disgusted beyond belief that baby's gonna have no parents with those horrible lies. Just stop effing lying and be accountable for once in your life. I care about kids, but especially that amazing little girl, and I don't know what else to say or do, but I'm effing upset and can't believe she'd do that. That child told me to my face she calls her mom's house, quote, the anxiety house, and said, I remember thinking to myself to start recording because she lies too much, and I already seen with my own eyes her try to act like he was being a physical threat, like the Caucasian woman she is. So I said out my mouth that night, nope, I won't allow it to get physical, and her tears suddenly stopped and she became aggressive because that tactic wasn't working anymore. Now into Kehlani's declaration, she's giving background on why she's requesting this order in their relationship. I'm just going to start at paragraph 3. I am seeking orders on an emergency basis to protect our daughter from her father's emotional abuse, neglect, and to protect me from his abuse, which includes being physically, verbally, and emotionally abusive towards me, beginning when I was pregnant with Adea. I am also seeking orders to stop him from his continued posting and public campaign, which ultimately will cause our daughter more psychological damage and which is disturbing my peace and endangering our child. And that part was denied. Javaughn and I were involved in a romantic relationship in 2019. I gave birth to Adea in Oakland, California. Since her birth, I have been the primary, if not the only parent to our daughter. There have been periods of time when her father has disappeared for months, then returned and promised to be a better parent. To try to help him, I've allowed him to stay on my property, in my van, or in my home, and tried my best to be sure that he has a relationship with our daughter. He is not emotionally well and appears to suffer from periods of despair and often tirades of uncontrollable anger and rage. When he is agitated, he cannot stop moving and throwing his arms in the air while yelling and screaming at me, often throwing items and calling me horrible names. He cannot contain his anger, which is often in front of our daughter. It scares me, and I can imagine is very upsetting for a small child. Javaughn self-medicates by smoking marijuana every day and all day and by taking psychedelics. Because of this repeated cycle, I've had to keep him away from our daughter for periods of time. When he disappeared, I believe he is living with friends or on the street homeless. He will reappear disheveled and dirty. He lacks personal hygiene and self-care. If he has our daughter in his care, she is returned filthy and reeking of marijuana. On was staying in my back house from about May 2024 through mid-June 2024 for a 3-week period. On or about mid-June 2024, after I realized he was back to his same old ways, and I asked him to finally leave my home and not return, I received in the mail a document that showed he had applied for some kind of public assistance. I asked him what he was doing to discuss his needs. Javaughn became so enraged that day that he smashed through my locked bedroom door in a fit of anger. He called me a bitch and a liar. He blamed me for our daughter's birth, and as he has repeatedly done, claiming he was trapped and that I had ruined his life. He would not discuss his situation in a rational manner. Now, this is what Javaughn posted in relation to what seems to be this incident, posted in mid-June, of Kehlani trying to get in contact with him, and him reiterating that he had walked away from her, did not want to have a discussion. He said Kehlani busted through her own door and is framing her abuse as mine. I have more. This is why I keep a paper trail. Got into an argument, and he became so angry that he threw a guitar at me while I was 7 months pregnant. That was the first fight, when he threatened to take our baby from me once she was born. He then left the house, and after some time I went to look for him because I was worried.
Okay, so like, you know, I understand like not telling your business, but volunteering things that aren't true is also weird, because you came on the interviews, we only know about him because of you, and all you did was paint him as this great, amazing co-parent and great guy in the interview. Why'd you do that? Nobody asked you to do that. We would have been fine not knowing anything about this man, but now you did all that to now retract it and be like he's abusive and all this stuff because you're getting, that's the weird thing to me. And then you're like, oh, and he's gay and I'm gay and we're just so nice to have a queer relationship, and then you end up with YG after that. What? and then you was with Victoria Monet. No, you were with Victoria Monet first, and then you got pregnant by Javaughn, and she found out. Everybody has the same story. Like, that's so sad. Hate the Club, Kehlani's song Hate the Club is about Victoria Monet, and then Victoria Monet has a song called Touch Me or something like that, and it's about Kehlani, and then like Kehlani hopped on the remix or something. Yeah, they've been dilly-dallying for a little while. Or Victoria got pregnant on her or something. I don't know. Listen, both of them was messing with each other and had the babies with the men's, but then was still going back to bump purses.
And moved to New York City. Javaughn returned to Los Angeles when our baby was born. He apologized and promised he would be a better father. This would be a pattern. The day after our daughter was born, while we were together just after her birth, he became enraged at me again, yelling at me. He was moving around, throwing his arms into the air. He became so out of control, he threw his phone, which smashed when it hit the ground while I was holding our baby. Our baby reacted to the noise and became upset. She had a scare. Her arms and legs abruptly went outwards and she began screaming and crying. I soothed her and told him to leave. This was supposed to be a happy family time. Instead, our baby was exposed to violence on her first day of life. This behavior scared me. On that same day, he also said that Adea was the second coming of Christ and needed to be taken to complete her mission. When he says things like this, I'm afraid he is going to take her and harm her. He was using drugs, including psychedelics, when he said these things. I had to ask him again to leave my home, and he disappeared again for months. But everything else I'll address later, but I want all false accusations of abuse to rest, along with the message of Kehlani congratulating him on Father's Day and saying what a good type of father he is. He also posted this, which appears to be from January of this year, where she said, Happy New Year. Thank you for being such an incredible family member and father. I can't wait to see how we keep leveling up this family and our commitment to it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to rest, recharge, and restore right now. It means more than you know. Always here for you to do just the same.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I've always seen her just speak so highly of this man. Like, it's just so backwards. That's crazy. And he be silent. Like, I've actually never really heard him say much about her. I don't see this man ever on social media. This is the most I've ever seen him speak. I've never heard this man talk and post so much. Toxic, toxic, toxic. That is terrible. So yeah. All right, later, y'all.
I'm gonna sip this cup.